Justice Kohli, it's an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Your career has spanned from being standing counsel and legal advisor to serving as the Chief Justice of the Telangana High Court and ultimately a judge of the Supreme Court of India.
Yes.
As someone joining you from Egypt, I'm especially interested in how your journey reflects both the challenges and the opportunities for justice in our region and beyond.
Firstly, let me thank you for making the effort of coming to Delhi to interview me. And I hope this has an outreach to many other women in various parts of the world who also feel the need to be reassured that the legal profession is the right profession for them. My journey began as a lawyer sometime in the early 80s, middle 80s shall I say, specifically 1984, and that was a time when there were just a handful of women. Literally, you could count them on your fingers, because there were not many who would accept the challenge of going to court and working in an environment which was male dominated. Somehow I think I had a lot of encouragement from my parents, in particular my mother, who felt that there should be no barrier for a woman, whatever choices she may make. So though my father was more keen that I take a teaching profession, maybe become a professor or a lecturer in a university or a college, my calling was that I wanted to do law, keeping in mind that there was no lawyer in the family, nobody had ever seen a law court. My father came from a business background and my mother from an academic one. But surprisingly, the journey went well, and I'm happy that I could ultimately achieve the highest position of the country by demitting office as a judge of the Supreme Court of India. There were a lot of challenges in that path. Challenges are not just from within as to whether I would meet the required level of competence to satisfy my clients, but also challenges from dealing with men in that setup, because there were only men and more men both on the bench and as my colleagues, and they also had their own reservations about a woman joining the bar. All that went along with me. I made some friends as I went along. There were support systems. There were others who were wanting to pull your leg a bit.
Yes.
That goes with the territory, I think, in any profession.
Yeah, we're in this. Across democracies, courts are under skirting from politics and public opinion. From your time on the bench, what do you see as the greatest threat to judicial independence, and what safeguard do you believe is most effective?
The greatest threat to judicial independence is something which is from within. As long as one, as a judge, knows how to keep oneself isolated from pulls and pressures around one, and keep a balance, there cannot be any attempt by anybody to try and reach out to you to pass any order which may favor one or the other. Another challenge I think today would be to be able to deal with the media. The social media, which is, as it stands today, is thriving. When, say 2 decades ago, that was not the case. And I can say from my own experience that when a judgment used to be covered in the press, it would invariably be said, X High Court has decided this, or Supreme Court has decided so and so issue. Today, it's reached a stage where not only would it be said, say take for example Delhi High Court, they'll say single judge, Justice so and so has taken this decision. So there is a name and there is a face that public can identify with, which was not so earlier. Nobody recognized who the judge was. It was an isolated life, a life of a recluse. But one has to go with the times, I think, and stride along with the society, which means that you can't completely cut away yourself and live in an ivory tower. You must remember that to know that justice actually is dispensed and reaches the last person, one must be able to put your finger on the pulse and be aware of ground realities around you. So those are challenges which we face in today's day and time, and challenges which one deals with as one thinks fit depending on the situation.
Okay, yeah, that's great. That brings me to another dimension, not just institutional but personal. You were the first woman Chief Justice of the Telangana High Court and only the 10th woman on India's Supreme Court in roles where women remain underrepresented. How did you approach the dual challenge of leading an institution while also pushing for a more gender-sensitive judiciary, both in its composition and in its judgments?
Okay. Just a minor correction. I happened to be the 9th woman to have adorned the bench in Supreme Court. It's a matter of chance that for the first time in the history of Supreme Court, 75 years, there were 3 women who took oath together. I was the senior most as number 9 and 2 other colleagues of mine. And that was all we had out of 34 judges. We were 4 women at that time with a senior colleague who was already there, and 3 of us added to 4. Today we are again back to 1. After I demitted office and another lady colleague of mine did, we are left with only 1. And I hope that we can very soon have a judiciary again at least comprising of 10% if not more of women in the Supreme Court. As far as the travel to Telangana is concerned, it was a remarkable experience, and I think I had started with a bit of trepidation, thinking that how will I handle that assignment, but with the grace of God and the support of my colleagues, the registry, and of course the bar, everything went very well. The challenge was for me that when I was transferred as a Chief Justice to Telangana, more specifically Hyderabad, where the court is, there was COVID in full form. The second round of COVID the first was over, the second was building up, and things were in a flux. So we were doing courts virtually mostly. It was only in the last part of my tenure in Telangana in the month of July, August that we were started to go back to physical court. So the most important challenge for me was to ensure that the courts ran virtually without a hitch. So wherever we were, in our residences, in our home offices, that we were connected, that the files were being sent on time, that lawyers didn't have problems, that people were being given adequate treatment, there were backups, health plans. All that was also part of my job. So it was not just that being a Chief Justice in the court, but being heading the administration, ensuring that every district was being run smoothly, that access to justice was not thwarted, that the public had the facilities which they needed to be able to access courts. These were all challenges, but I'm glad to state that my colleagues, they may have had some reservations initially, they did not share with me. Some of them became very good friends by the time I left. And we continue our association and friendship with them. I do even today. And Hyderabad has a special place in my heart even today.
Actually, access today is also being reshaped by technology. The pandemic accelerated changes like virtual hearings and e-filings, as you just said, expanded during the pandemic. Do you see technology as a tool that can truly democratize access to justice, or does it risk creating a digital divide that leaves behind those without resources?
Okay. So, as we were just talking about the COVID time and the pandemic pushed all of us in court to adopt virtual courts and do matters virtually in a big hurry. Once that took off, I'm glad to state that in India, all the courts, particularly the high courts and the Supreme Courts, made sure that all the technology was available for us to run courts virtually. So our files were PDF files, our filing was e-filing, our appearances were permitted through virtual appearances with links sent to parties to log in. It was refined over a time. It continued even after COVID. Till date, the courts permit hybrid hearing. It has percolated to the district courts, which is the face of every high court. Let us not forget the maximum interface a litigant has when he or she knocks at the door of the court is the district court. And those district and session judges are the ones who deal with the maximum number of matters. They have greater challenges. So once that virtual system was set in place, the distance of time or geographical distances, they got completely demolished. People didn't have to come to the state high court as in a capital of the state to be able to appear in a high court matter or file a case. Their local lawyers who were at this point on the peripheries were able to e-file and file their petitions through that process and even appear virtually without leaving their offices from wherever they were. What could be a better revolution than that? AI to that extent has played a marvelous role. In the Supreme Court, we have tools which with AI which have helped to club and tag matters, to simplify matters, to do researches, cross searches, etc. through their own apps. We have also the advantage of AI as in it helps translate the judgments which are English, and even our courts in High Court and Supreme Court, the spoken and written language is English, into regional languages. So as on date, 18 regional languages are available. The judgments can be translated into 18 languages, accessible to lawyers and litigants in their languages for them to go through, and they can even download those. That has also been a big plus from the angle of AI. So these are all things that are helping. These are tools, but end of the day, they are tools to ease access to justice, not to take over judgment writing. And that remarkable difference keeps what things going. It is the judges who ultimately have to take a decision. They can only rely on researches, etc. from tools like this, not the final writing of the decision.
Yes, thank you. Leadership often means balancing competing expectations. India's legal system is rooted in both tradition and constitutional principles. How should judges navigate cases where cultural practices appear to clash with fundamental rights, especially in sensitive areas like family, law, or personal freedoms?
Okay. So I think it's a question of harmonizing the law and keeping in mind the traditions that the particular litigant comes from, that background. India is a vast country. There are several states. There are several spoken languages. There are several traditions and religions which we all encapsulate in ourselves. So it's a myriad number of cultures that coexist. There are days of a month where we will probably have 4 or 5 festivals from different religions being celebrated together. It could be Eid with Janmashtami, with something to do with the southern Onam being celebrated together, and that feeling of having this multiple cultures merging makes us the country that we are. In that, the challenge for the judge is to apply the law to, if there is an occasion, to apply the law in such a manner that there is ordinarily no clash regarding the parties' beliefs and cultures. This particular challenge occurs very often in family court matters, where maybe, their parties come from a particular background, they have particular faiths, they have particular thought processes and systems of rearing children which could maybe be different from a modern society. Again, the urban and the rural is also, I wouldn't call it a divide, but there are 2 sets of population. So we have the metropolitan cities, we have the tier 1, 2, 3 cities which are on and there are cities on the fringe, there are towns, and then there are villages. All of them ultimately, wherever the litigation is, come to court. And it is for us to then see how to apply the law without diluting it, and at the same time keeping in mind the cultural rootings of a party. And this is something which is forever being done and worked upon. I think the fine balances are made without compromising on the basic fundamental laws. They will always remain the guiding light. How to apply it and how to make it simpler or easier for parties at the same time in such like matters relating to families where there's a lot of emotion, lot of sentiments, lives of children and the elderly involved, is a challenge to the judge, and he and she must meet up to that each time.
Of course, rights only matter if people can access. You championed the mediation and legal aid. Looking back, do you think India has made enough progress in ensuring access to justice for marginalized communities, or does the system rival deepening inequalities despite these efforts?
I must share with you that we have a statute which is to do with legal aid, National Legal Services Authority. It's a statute which has been enacted by the government with the idea of being able to extend legal aid to the downtrodden, to those who are in the minority, those who are sidelined or on the fringes of the society and the economically weak. This is a bulwark that is available to us across the country. So it is headed by the Supreme Court Legal Services Authority, which is the National Legal Services Authority, the State Legal Services Authority, the District Legal Services Authority. Those are authorities who can be approached by a litigant who would perhaps not afford to go to court, who doesn't have the wherewithal in the sense of money, or the are in a position to know who to approach. These are authorities that not only provide lawyers for them on payment or no payment by the litigant, but by the authority. They have funds for it. They make panels of lawyers. They select lawyers for the criminal side, for the civil side, and then they will identify a lawyer depending on the case and give it to a party. So the party is able to have an appearance in court through that lawyer, brief the lawyer, and present the facts to the court. Besides such a strong bulwark that we have, which is a Legal Services Authority, courts also take the initiative of appointing amicus curiae, who will do a matter pro bono for a party on the request of the court. And there are several lawyers who have excellent practices, who are willing to do that work as their way of returning to the society, and it works beautifully. So the court gets appropriate assistance, the party is represented. Of course, this is not without the consent of the party. The consent of the party is taken. That can be a point A, B or C. Are you comfortable with this lawyer? If you are, depending on the nature of the matter, we assign the matter to the lawyer. Court pays from its own pocket for making the paper book, for making the documents, printing them and giving it to the lawyer, so that the party doesn't have to bear the expenses. And that's how access to justice is there for everybody, particularly those who are in prison. Their petitions for bail, for release, for quashing, for challenging orders or judgments are all done by what we call lawyers who actually go to jail and sit there and interact, have conferences with the parties, whoever they are in prison, and with the prisoners, draft the petitions on their behalf and file it, and then contest it. So all this put together gives enough of a backup for anybody who is not in a position to approach the court for lack of money, lack of wherewithal, or lack of support system, to have access to justice in every which way.
And finally, looking beyond the present, every judge leaves behind a legacy. If you could reform one aspect of India's legal system to better serve the next generation, what would it be, and why do you see it as the most urgent?
To my mind, one thing that needs to be highlighted, and I'm saying that as a woman, is that there should be more presence of women in the judiciary. And that can only happen when there are more women as lawyers. Unless there are women lawyers, then how can they finally ultimately aspire to become judges? Now, there are two routes in our country to be elevated to the bench. One is through the district judiciary. Those are judges who, over promotion over the years, become senior enough to fall in the zone of consideration for appointment. 1/3 of the appointments in all high courts are comprising of those judges who come from the district court. 2/3 are those who are invited to the bench who are lawyers. Now, if there are no litigating lawyers and if there are lesser women, the pool gets smaller. If the pool gets smaller, the appointments are lesser. So it is interrelated. I would say it is imperative to encourage women who come out of law colleges, and I can tell you there are lots of law colleges, it's not there's any doubt. And there are a lot of women who are going to these law colleges. But unfortunately, the attrition rate is quite high when it comes to getting into active legal practice. It's not a case of blaming anybody, but the ground reality is many times women have to drop out of their professions for the reason that they have got married and have to relocate with their husbands to other parts of the city or abroad, or there are times when they have to, then the biological clock is ticking and they have to take a break to set up family, and that means once they procreate, they have to ensure that there is some maternity leave or child care, which means again a break in the career. By the time they go back to their career, those who were their contemporaries suddenly become senior to them because they have been in the profession for long enough to make a mark. Whereas the woman who may have worked, slogged for 4, 5, 6 years and then taken a break comes back to square one. And again has to rebuild the practice and work to be able to be recognized well enough to be invited to the bench. So the numbers decrease as a result of that. That is an area which we need to make sure that there are people who are there to support, as in lawyers there to support them, people who are in position to support them within the legal fraternity and give them an option of maybe working from home, which again AI has helped a lot in, where women can remain in their home without setting up offices, working around, multitasking. And how much of multitasking do women do? We all know. They are caregivers for seniors, they are caregivers for children, they manage the whole household many times on their own shoulders and still have to work on a career. So these are challenges which we must recognize, we must address, and if there is a support system these women have from other women in the profession who have achieved something, and other men in the profession, and not confining it to women, because majority still is of men. So unless the men open up their chambers, open their doors to take them in, to train them, to give them opportunities to appear in various say conferences, various discussions, debates and platforms, how in the world will they shine? This is all part of our duty, not just as judges, but those who are in the legal profession in any form, to encourage them. This is something which is very important. And second is those who are marginalized, or those who come from standalone, that is from standalone families, as in non-legal families, first-time lawyers. It's very difficult for a first-time lawyer to make an entry into the legal profession. The gestation period is long. It almost takes 6 to 7 years for a lawyer to actually find her or his feet. There were people like me who had nobody in the profession. I was fortunate that I had very good seniors in whose chambers I could work, learn, and then rise slowly up my career. But then I started my career and I shared it with everybody from the boot of my car, because I had no office and I didn't know where to place my files and I didn't know how to operate. So, but God was kind, has been kind. At least I had a car where I could operate from. There were others who wouldn't even have that facility. So each one had their own challenges. As long as we are able to meet them, as long as we are able to live up to them and take the gauntlet, take it further, we'll not be able to leave a mark for the others to broaden the paths. And we are all here to broaden the paths.
Mrs. Kohli, thank you for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you so much.
Very valuable, not only for India, but for the whole region.
Thank you.
I want to express our gratitude for your time and wisdom, and we look forward to seeing how your legacy continues to inspire future generations of lawyers.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to Delhi, and thank you for meeting me. It has been a pleasure.